The train's whistle shrieked through the dusk, a lonesome cry that echoed across the empty platform of Willow Creek Station, where Samuel Hart stood frozen, staring at the tracks. His hands trembled, clutching a worn photograph of his late wife, Eliza, her smile faded but still sharp enough to cut through his heart. It had been 2 years since cancer stole her away, leaving him a widower at 40, drowning in grief and the weight of raising their 10-year-old daughter, Lily, alone. Tonight, he'd come to the station to escape the silence of their farmhouse, to let the rumble of passing trains drown out the memories. But what he found instead was a woman sitting on a splintered bench, her wedding dress crumpled, tears streaming down her face, abandoned in a world that seemed to have no place for her. Samuel's boots scuffed against the platform as he hesitated. The woman, Clara Thompson, looked up, her eyes red and raw, her hands twisting the lace of her gown. She was heavy-set, her dress straining at the seams, and the cruel whispers of passers-by earlier that day lingered in her mind. Too fat for a bride. They'd sneered when her fiancé, a man she'd met through letters, took one look at her and boarded the next train out of town without a word. Clara, 32 and full of dreams, had traveled across 3 states to marry a man who'd promised her love, only to be discarded like luggage left behind. She'd been sitting there for hours, her suitcase at her feet, wondering if she'd ever find a place to belong. Samuel, no stranger to pain, felt a tug in his chest. He approached cautiously, his voice soft but steady. "Ma'am, you all right?" Clara's head snapped up, startled, and she wiped her face, embarrassed. "I'm fine," she lied, but her voice cracked, betraying her. Samuel sat down a few feet away, respecting her space, and offered her his handkerchief. They sat in silence for a moment, the train tracks humming faintly in the distance. Then, haltingly, Clara began to talk about her journey, her hopes, the humiliation of being left behind. Samuel listened, his own grief surfacing as he recognized her loneliness, a mirror to his own. He shared his story too, about Eliza, about Lily, about the farm that felt more like a tomb than a home. Something in their shared vulnerability sparked a connection, raw and unexpected. Clara's warmth, her resilience despite her tears, reminded Samuel of the strength he'd loved in Eliza. And for Clara, Samuel's quiet kindness was a balm to the rejection that still stung. When she admitted she had nowhere to go, no money for a ticket back, Samuel made a decision that surprised even himself. "Come home with me," he said. "Not for pity, but because you deserve better than this platform. My daughter and we could use someone like you." Clara stared, stunned, but saw sincerity in his eyes. Against all reason, she agreed. The first challenge came quickly, Lily. When Samuel brought Clara to the farmhouse, Lily, a sharp-tongued girl with her mother's auburn curls, was wary. "She's not my mama," Lily snapped, retreating to her room. Clara, already fragile from her abandonment, felt the rejection like a fresh wound. She wanted to belong, to help, but Lily's coldness made her question her place. Samuel, torn between his daughter's grief and his growing care for Clara, struggled to bridge the gap. He spent evenings talking to Lily, explaining that Clara wasn't here to replace Eliza but to be part of their family in a new way. Clara, meanwhile, didn't push. She cooked hearty meals, mended Lily's dresses, and left small wildflower bouquets by her door, patient and persistent. The second challenge was the town. Willow Creek was small, its people quick to judge. Whispers spread about Samuel marrying a stranger, a woman deemed undesirable by her own fiancé. At the general store, Clara overheard cruel remarks about her size, her dress, her audacity to think she could fit into Samuel's life. The gossip stung, but worse was the pity directed at Samuel, as if he'd settled for less. Clara's confidence wavered, she wondered if she was a burden, if Samuel regretted his impulsive choice. One night, she broke down, confessing her fears to him. Samuel, his voice firm, told her, "I didn't marry you out of pity, Clara. I married you because I saw a woman with a heart big enough to hold us all." His words gave her strength, but the town's judgment lingered. The third challenge was their own doubts. Samuel, still haunted by Eliza, wrestled with guilt. Was he betraying her memory by loving again? Clara, scarred by rejection, feared Samuel's kindness was temporary, that he'd wake up one day and see her as her fiancé had unworthy. Their marriage, born of impulse, was fragile, built on shared pain but not yet on trust. They tiptoed around each other, polite but guarded, until a crisis forced them to confront their fears. One stormy night, Lily ran away, overwhelmed by memories of her mother and scared of losing her father to Clara. The rain poured as Samuel and Clara searched the fields, their clothes soaked, their hearts pounding. They found Lily huddled in a barn, shivering and crying. Clara, acting on instinct, wrapped her in her shawl and held her, whispering stories of her own childhood losses until Lily calmed. Samuel watched, seeing Clara's love for his daughter, and something shifted. When they returned home, he took Clara's hand and said, "We're in this together now. All of us." It was the first time they felt like a family. Over months, they faced smaller challenges, learning to communicate, blending their lives, rebuilding trust. Clara's warmth won Lily over. The girl began to smile, even laugh, as Clara taught her to bake and shared silly stories. The town's gossip faded as people saw Clara's kindness, her strength in helping Samuel save the farm from a bad harvest. Samuel, in turn, found joy in Clara's laughter, her resilience, and realized he wasn't replacing Eliza but honoring her by living again. Clara, supported by Samuel's steady love, began to see herself not as too fat or unwanted but as enough, more than enough. By the time spring arrived, the farmhouse was alive again. Lily planted flowers with Clara, calling her Mama Clara without hesitation. Samuel, no longer haunted, looked at Clara with a love he hadn't thought possible. One evening, as they sat on the porch, Clara's hand in his, Lily playing nearby, Samuel said, "You didn't just save me, Clara. You saved us." Clara smiled, her heart full, knowing she'd found her place. The story of Samuel and Clara spread through Willow Creek, not as gossip but as a testament to second chances. They'd faced grief, rejection, and doubt, but together, they built something stronger, a family rooted in love, not perfection. For anyone watching their story unfold, the message was clear: no one is too broken, too scarred, or too anything to find where they belong. Love doesn't judge, it heals. And sometimes, it starts on a lonely train platform, with two hearts brave enough to try again.